State lawmakers address mounting demands for change in juvenile justice. Why critics say they're struggling to get the youth crime crisis under control.
No one was really on the same page.
City police officers taking the fall over July's mass shooting. We look at the struggles facing the department and question if your leaders should take more responsibility. Other states cracking down on youth crime while Maryland struggles.
The juveniles know there's nothing that we can do.
A Florida prosecutor breaks down on how her policies are holding young offenders accountable.
Prosecutors need to be able to do their jobs.
Top prosecutors claim new marijuana laws are putting communities in danger. Why they blame them for a drop in illegal gun seizures.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Well, we would like to welcome those of you who just watched the Rays narrowly defeat the O's 4-3. The Rays take game one of this 4-game series.
Rocco DeSangro will have full highlights and post-game reaction coming up on Sports Unlimited. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. We are following the fallout from two big hearings yesterday, neither leaving elected leaders satisfied with what they heard.
State officials still searching for solutions in the youth crime crisis in Maryland. A juvenile justice hearing ended without a concrete plan.
In Baltimore, residents are sounding off on the city council hearing about the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. Still, lots of unanswered questions after that meeting ended early when a grieving mother's emotional testimony brought council members to tears.
This did not have to happen. This didn't have to happen if there were 1 or 2 or 3 patrol cars out there. I'm sorry, guys. As I said, this is my life.
While much of the criticism appears to be directed at the police department as a whole, some are questioning whether police leaders themselves need to take more accountability.
Fox 45's Jeff Abel joins us live right now with some ongoing issues within the city police department and those concerns. Jeff?
Well, we're learning tonight that as many as 9 police officers were called to headquarters today to be questioned about their role in this mass shooting. This is an investigation that seems to be centered around the actions of officers, and one which some taxpayers insist is missing the mark.
I don't see how this falls on the police at all.
On talk radio, there seemed little debate over who shouldn't pay for the Brooklyn mass shooting.
You can't blame the police on this. I wouldn't put the blame on the police.
This does not fall on the police. Not at all.
I hope that we are in a better place now to answer these questions today than we were 2 months ago.
The frustration comes after the city's second hearing on Wednesday, examining the breakdown of the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting, where 2 died and 28 others were injured. In the hot seat, the police department's top brass, who readily admitted mistakes.
We should have had boots on the ground.
We should have expected our officers to reach out to the Brooklyn community and ask, not simply wait for the information to come to us.
The citizens of Baltimore have put in and invested a lot of money in the Baltimore Police Department to move in a different direction.
They want the skin off of somebody, but they want a goat at the bottom of the totem pole.
Darrell Berman is president of the Retired Police Benevolent Association, who believes city leaders are too quick to blame the understaffed police department.
Well, they want to throw the stone at somebody. You know, it surely can't be them, and it surely can't be, the people in 100 North Holiday Street.
Perhaps if Brandon Scott hadn't defunded the police for $24 million, we could have put more cars in the neighborhood.
This is what happens when you have a lawless city. Lawlessness occurs. And to sit there and say, you know what, we got to ask the police department more questions. I was flabbergasted.
For now, the frustration seems to be growing over who's really responsible for the still unsolved shootings.
Where were the parents in that housing? Where was the housing authority?
This is going to be another situation where they're going to lose more police. They're going to go to other jurisdictions. And you're not going to have any police that are going to want to come to the city.
City leaders have pressed the police department on how many officers are under investigation. So far, the department has provided no answer. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
All right, Jeff, thank you. We are getting our first look at Acting Police Commissioner Richard Worley's proposed contract. The contract includes a $285,000 salary with a 3% annual increase and further incentives if city crime goes down. The contract also includes a monthly housing allowance of $1,000 for up to 6 months or until his Anne Arundel County home sells. Worley must live within city limits, according to Baltimore's charter. He says he is actively looking for permanent housing in the city. The contract is one of several items up for discussion at next Wednesday's Board of Estimates meeting. Worley's confirmation hearing is one day later on September 21st at 5 p.m. We'll have complete coverage leading up to both of those events on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
We need to stop making excuses for these kids. They know exactly what they're doing, and it needs to stop.
If a crime clearly has occurred, we should allow our officers to take action, and it's frustrating to the community that we cannot.
Well, lawmakers and prosecutors are frustrated about juvenile justice laws. During this week's hearing, they say the state needs a solution to the problem. Fox 45 News has heard from prosecutors across the state and Baltimore City, all saying they believe their hands are tied by current laws. That group represents more than 4.5 million people, about 80% of Maryland's population. Tonight, Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor is looking into how juvenile crime strategies in another state are resonating in Maryland. Our team coverage begins with Mackenzie Frost and why lawmakers don't seem closer to solutions following the hearing.
Lawmakers and stakeholders spent hours talking about their viewpoints, but really very little talk was actually had about solutions to the growing juvenile crime problem. 5 hours of questioning filled with data disputes.
Nationally and in Maryland, as juvenile incarceration has declined, so has juvenile crime.
The statements of the secretary about the falling numbers in terms of juvenile crime that's not what we've seen here in Montgomery County. If you actually compare the numbers between 21 and 22, we have nearly double the number of arrests in 22 than we had in 21.
Accountability concerns.
Young people are dying in the streets, and despite this, it doesn't sound like you think that anybody should be really held accountable, even kids who are illegally in possession of a firearm.
When we only talk about quote unquote accountability, which is now becoming the code word for locking up black and brown children, we're only speaking to what the problem is.
And frustration over the Juvenile Interrogation Act.
We have yet to run into a situation where a public defender has allowed access for an interview to the juvenile.
Even children who carry guns and cause harm deserve help.
The back and forth among stakeholders continue. Some lawmakers echoing what parents are saying.
They're teenagers. They know what they're doing. They know right from wrong.
We need to stop making excuses for these kids. They know exactly what they're doing, and it needs to stop.
It seemed like a lot of it was a venting session. Everyone's frustrated, but no one was really on the same page.
Political analyst John Deedy says the hearing wasn't uncommon for politicians.
This happens in Washington all the time, where we're going to hold a big public hearing, and it's more theater than it is actually details and what's going to happen.
But that doesn't mean it brought anyone closer to a solution. While lawmakers lament about their position, most appear to be sticking with their views of the laws in place, despite more and more prosecutors on the ground begging for change.
This legislation has put our children at risk, our communities at risk, and the entire state at risk of extreme chronic violence.
What we are asking for is for that component to be removed, and that it is not required that the juvenile cannot waive that particular right or refer to his or her parent, and that parent not have any type of input.
With another hearing scheduled for November, this time in person, Deedy argues lawmakers need to step up their problem solving.
You had your venting session, you expressed how you feel, you're mad, you're angry, you don't want to take it anymore. Okay, now what are you going to do about it?
And get ready for the legislative debate when session begins in January. Deedy says Governor Moore needs to take the lead on this issue and set the agenda. But so far, the governor has really shied away from specifics when talking about change. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, states' attorneys are taking issue with two new laws, including the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, which prevents children under 13 from facing most criminal charges. They're also questioning the Child Interrogation Protection Act, stating police can't question any children or suspects or witnesses without notifying parents and getting approval from an attorney. And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you agree with states' attorneys that laws need to be changed? So far, 100% of people who voted say yes. You can make your voice heard right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Republican Delegate Robin Grammer, who represents Baltimore County, also says he would have liked to see more come out of yesterday's hearing. We talked to him on Fox 45 News at 4 o'clock, where he pushes back on the claim that juvenile crime is down in Maryland.
You know, they see this as juvenile crimes are down 2/3. And even the Democrats questioned them on that yesterday. For me, juvenile crime in my area is the worst it's been in my entire life. I think the Department of Juvenile Services is neglecting the fact that for legitimate crimes, if law enforcement doesn't respond, if they don't file a report, if the suspect isn't found, if charges aren't pressed, if a prosecutor drops charges, and we know all these things are happening quite a bit, those are legitimate crimes that are impacting the lives of Marylanders that are just never being counted. So I think the first thing we have to do is get everybody on the same page here and reconcile the fact that really we are seeing historic juvenile crime. It's impacting victims every day. And I think if the administration could admit that, we could start to move in the right direction.
While Maryland is struggling with juvenile crime, other states like Florida seem to be taking action. This week, the Tampa State's attorney sent a strong message to teens saying violent crime will not be tolerated at any age. As Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor explains, the prosecutor says the only way to stop crime is with consequences.
With more young people getting their hands on guns across the country, Susie Lopez.
We are holding offenders accountable.
A state attorney out of Tampa, Florida, taking a tough on crime approach to the crisis.
There's been, I believe, a fairly common misconception that you get a free pass if you're a juvenile. You get a free pass based on your age. That's not going to keep our community safe.
This week, in response to a 13-year-old shooting a 15-year-old with a stolen gun, Lopez quickly vowing to charge the minor as an adult.
The juvenile justice system is full of diversion programs that are quite appropriate when someone shoplifts, when someone steals something from a 7-Eleven. A gun is a completely different ballgame.
Back in Baltimore,
a gun is a completely different ballgame.
Those remarks resonating with residents we spoke with.
And people 13 and 14 robbing, that's not good.
They know right from wrong.
Many of whom say they'd like to hear the same stance coming from our elected officials.
If they don't stop it along the way and set an example out of some of these people, it's never going to end.
If you don't do nothing about it, they're going to keep on killing.
And as gun violence tightens its grip on our young people, several of the state's top prosecutors agreeing.
We have to begin to hold juveniles accountable.
But Baltimore State's Attorney Ivan Bates among those blaming the new Juvenile Justice Reform Act, which blocks children under 13 from being charged with most crimes, for the lack of children facing consequences and the uptick in crime.
The juveniles know there's nothing that we can do.
They know that, nothing's really going to happen to them.
We can't detain them. They're back in the community the next day.
Having lawmakers make decisions for lawyers.
Prosecutors need to be able to do their jobs.
Hard to fathom for Lopez.
Their job is to keep the community and the public safe.
When to charge minors as adults, not a decision she takes lightly. But when lives are at stake, Lopez believes action needs to be taken. And when it's not,
I fear to think what's going to happen. Because if this behavior can only escalate.
Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
And Fox 45 News will continue to demand accountability surrounding juvenile crime in Maryland. You can find our extensive reporting online right now at foxbaltimore.com.
President Joe Biden's son Hunter has been indicted on federal gun charges in connection with the handgun he bought in 2018. Now, the case was scheduled to be dismissed, but a plea deal fell apart after a federal review this summer.
Biden's defense attorneys responded to the indictment, saying prosecutors filed charges today, despite saying those same charges weren't warranted just 6 weeks ago. National correspondent Christine Frizzell will have a full report coming up in about 10 minutes.
All right, a comfortable night on the way. Unfortunately, an O's loss tonight, but we're winning the weather, that's for sure. Toyota issued a Harbor Sky Cam looking okay over Camden Yards. Temperatures all now in the 60s to around 70, and we're on our way into the 50s, likely most neighborhoods tonight. Annapolis, you're at 63, but look at that 50 up around Westminster, maybe a light jacket in the morning, low to mid 50s along the eastern shore, and perhaps even in the coldest areas, there could be a couple upper 40s like at Frederick. But on top of this, we are tracking the tropics not too far away. I'm going to let you know if we're going to have any impacts around here out of Lee. That's coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
And coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, Howard County families blindsided as the school system changes start times with little notice. A closer look at what's turning into a logistical nightmare for some parents. Are Maryland's new marijuana laws leading to more illegal guns on the streets? Why some top prosecutors say yes. And right after the break, the state's Juvenile Services Secretary calling car thefts property crimes. But we're taking a look at the impact and why some are frustrated with that comment.
There's been a spike in car thefts and carjackings across Maryland this year, many of them allegedly involving juveniles.
Car crime was another topic of discussion during Wednesday's juvenile justice hearing as DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi referred to the thefts as property crimes.
But others argue a stolen car can have a more severe impact on a person or family.
Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell explains.
A stolen car found abandoned and totaled. Here, images of the Fox 45 News Kia that had been stolen from the station parking lot earlier this week. Fox 45 News showing you that exclusive video of the suspects caught on surveillance. Investigators telling Kiera Atkins police received an anonymous tip someone had crashed her car here on East Landville Street in East Baltimore and left it.
It's frustrating, you know, I have to go through all this other extra financial situations with this, so it's really frustrating.
That frustration voiced during yesterday's hearing between a panel of Maryland lawmakers and the head of the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services, Vincent Schiraldi. The secretary questioned on why youth 13 and under committing these crimes are seemingly cycling through the system. Schiraldi calling auto thefts a non-violent crime, even though some of these cases have turned into homicides and shootings.
The council decided that the impact of formalizing cases on kids for nonviolent offenses was actually worse than just providing them with services And I think that by and large, that's true.
Formalizing, meaning bringing the juvenile before a judge and prosecuting them for the crime. But some argue that's exactly what needs to happen.
As it applies to auto theft, I mean, I really think you got to focus on consequences.
The consequence instead felt by more and more people, victims like Atkins.
I don't even understand why they're still taking these cars and why they're honestly not being locked up for it.
Local economist Eniban Basu warns it's only a matter of time before the city ultimately suffers.
When your car is stolen, to you, that's major. And people respond accordingly. If they have their car stolen, they move. They don't renew their lease. They don't buy that house in the first place, whatever it happens to be. So the economic impacts are major, even though some people define this as a minor crime.
Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
There have been 7,500 vehicles stolen in Baltimore City. Only about 3% of car thefts are ending in arrests. The city recently distributed 3,000 wheel locks to stop criminals, but Worley admits, the interim police commissioner, that a lack of consequences for juvenile offenders remains a problem. Police say they've recovered about 4,000 stolen cars this year.
Baltimore grandmother April Gaskins has been sentenced to 4 years in prison after her 9-year-old grandson was accused of using her gun to kill 15-year-old Nikayla Straughter. The incident happened in August of 2022. State law doesn't allow charges to be filed against Gaskins' grandson because of his age. He was 9 again. But police did charge her with reckless endangerment and firearm access by a minor. Police have said the child was playing with the gun when it accidentally went off. Straughter's family insists her death was not an accident.
A woman simply waiting at the bus stop in Baltimore is robbed at gunpoint, but the crime doesn't stop there. Investigators say the suspect terrorizes her for months. I'm Alexa Ashwell. Coming up, Maryland's Most Wanted.
President Biden's son Hunter indicted on 3 federal gun charges. I'm Christine Frizzell on Capitol Hill with how Republicans and Democrats are responding.
And impacts from Hurricane Lee just a stone's throw away tomorrow into Saturday. Take a look at the yellows and the oranges on the map. Those are tropical storm force and hurricane force winds getting as close as eastern Massachusetts up into Maine by tomorrow evening and into Saturday. And also look at all that rain heading up into New England and Canada. We're going to see some indirect effects, though, around here. I'm going to let you know what we could be dealing with into the weekend audibly. That's coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
And this is a live look right now at the Inner Harbor as we head to break. An absolutely beautiful night with the Domino sugar sign shining brightly. President Biden's son Hunter has been indicted on 3 gun charges.
If convicted, he faces up to 10 years behind bars. National correspondent Christine Frizzau has the latest.
The charges stem from Hunter Biden's purchase of a firearm in October of 2018 and lying on the application about his drug use at the time. They come less than 2 months after he was set to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges and enter into a pretrial diversion agreement to avoid prosecution on the felony gun charge. Now it's clear he won't avoid it. Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer calling the charges a very small start.
Ironically, that's the one crime that he committed that you cannot tie Joe Biden into.
Federal prosecutor, now special counsel David Weiss, brought the charges following Republican criticism of his new role. The indictment comes as Republicans in Congress are demanding the president's son be issued a subpoena as part of their investigation into his business dealings, a probe that this week led Speaker Kevin McCarthy to the decision to launch an impeachment inquiry into President Biden for his alleged role in those business dealings.
Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partners about Hunter's role in Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company.
Questions about business and finances not part of this indictment, but central to the investigation in the House.
We're following $20 million of money that flowed into shell companies created by Hunter Biden, and currently we don't have the data of where that money got spent.
Hunter Biden's attorney Abby Lowell responded to the indictment saying prosecutors filed charges today that they deemed were not warranted just 6 weeks ago following a 5-year investigation into this case, criticizing, quote, MAGA Republicans' improper and partisan interference in this process. Many Democrats pointing out the 3 charges against Hunter Biden pale in comparison to the 91 charges former President Trump is facing. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
Well, speaking of, former President Donald Trump and 16 co-defendants will be tried separately from 2 other defendants who requested speedy trials. Lawyers Sidney Powell and Kenneth Chesborough go to trial October 23rd. They are charged with racketeering. Prosecutors say the group carried out an illegal scheme to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. Trump and others charged asked to be tried separately. Some say they need more time to prepare for trial. Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis sought to charge all and try them all together.
Are there less guns in the street? Absolutely not. Are we more safe? Absolutely not.
Prosecutors sound off on Maryland's new marijuana laws, why they say the laws are making the streets less safe.
Howard County families left frustrated and scrambling after a last-minute change to school start times, why the school system says it'll make things easier as some parents deal with a logistics nightmare. We are following three big stories at 10:30. Frustration in Howard County as the school system changes its start times to accommodate bus service. Fox 45 News hears from parents who say they have to completely shift their own schedules.
Baltimore's Housing Authority responds to a report on its overdue water bills, why they say the city's collection process has been a challenge to navigate.
And a decline in illegal gun seizures across the state, why one prosecutor says marijuana laws are contributing to the trend.
Are there less guns in the street? Absolutely not. Are we more safe? Absolutely not.
We begin there. Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy says marijuana laws are keeping police hands tied when it comes to searching cars.
He argues the laws are putting communities in danger. Fox 45's Vincent Hill explains.
Yeah, it seems to be a problem statewide, and a law enforcement expert says crime will only get worse because of it.
Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy sounding the alarm about more guns on the street because of Maryland's recent marijuana laws.
In my jurisdiction, 80% of the guns we seized illegally on the streets of my county last year came out of car searches because of the odor of marijuana. We're not getting those 80% anymore.
The law prevents police from searching cars just because they smell marijuana, a law McCarthy says puts the community at risk.
Gun seizures are down in Montgomery County. Are there less guns in the street? Absolutely not. Are we more safe? Absolutely not.
And it's not just Montgomery County. In Baltimore City, where 463 people have been shot and injured and 196 shot and killed this year.
2023 gun arrests from patrol, 961 gun arrests. Is down 7% from last year.
While not speaking about the marijuana law, Acting Commissioner Richard Worley acknowledging gun arrests are down across the department. Over in Baltimore County, Chief Robert McCullough blaming marijuana for a majority of the county's deadly shootings.
Despite the changes, the underground economy for marijuana still exists. Many of our homicides, a key factor, and the majority of our homicides it's marijuana.
Law enforcement analyst Melissa Pinkleton.
You're tying our hands again.
Agrees with State's Attorney John McCarthy about communities not being safe.
Not only are you tying the officers' hands and taking that tool away, but now we're going to watch our cities become more unsafe because those guns we were getting from traffic stops, all those guns are staying in the cars and with the criminals.
Pinkleton says it's not just guns, but other crimes police will miss out on because of not having probable cause to search.
There are a plethora of different things and different crimes that have been stumbled upon just from smelling marijuana. I mean, burglaries, thefts. There are all kinds of different crimes that can be discovered just from that simple little tool that is now being taken away from law enforcement.
BPD says they've seized over 1,000 guns this year, but Pinkleton says of those thousands of guns, hundreds have gone undetected because of this new law. In Baltimore, Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy also pushed DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi, who argues juvenile crime is down across the state. McCarthy says his county continues to struggle with crime due to the laws in place.
Well, meantime, we'll try and get that for you a little later. State Delegate Nino Mangione is echoing some of those comments as well. He continues to push for a special session in Maryland. He joined us on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock today to share his thoughts about that hearing.
The Secretary of Juvenile Justice tries to act as if crime is down. Well, I'm here to say he's wrong and that the governor needs to act immediately. It was great to have this hearing yesterday. I believe that we need a broad discussion here. But with all due respect, this is not meant to insult. That was nothing but talk. We need action. Now is the time for action. Governor Moore needs to call a special session, and we need to hash all of this out and come back to the table, and let's get this done.
Well, Governor Wes Moore has already said he does not plan on calling a special session before the legislature reconvenes in January. But the conversation isn't over. There will be another hearing in November.
They can't get her there at 8 a.m. How are they going to get her there at 7:50 in the morning? I worry that she'll just be even later to school.
Howard County Public Schools are adjusting school start times as the system continues to deal with school bus issues. The new spaced out start times are designed to give buses more time to complete all their routes. But parents are frustrated at the sudden logistical change. Fox 45's Amy Simpson explains.
Benjamin Schmidt says he learned changes were coming with little warning.
I found out literally 13 minutes prior to the email going out.
Now the president of the Howard County Teachers Union, which represents about 6,000 educators, says he's gotten hundreds of texts and emails. Those teachers and staff giving him an earful, feeling blindsided after learning school times would be changing less than a month into the year.
We're all supposed to be on the same team for students and staff, but right now it doesn't feel like it.
This email went out to Howard County families yesterday, announcing the changes starting next Wednesday, September 20th. Superintendent Dr. Michael Martirano said thousands of students are dealing with ongoing bus delays, and some students are getting dropped off nearly 2 hours after their dismissal. The superintendent called the looming schedule change a big ask of families, pointing to the trickle-down effect for parent logistics, childcare, etc., and asking for patience and grace with the new times and traffic patterns next week.
It's a real pull for families and staff to care for their own families in this situation.
Schmidt says the transportation troubles already forced some educators to work outside of their contractual hours, having to take leave to tend to their own families. Now a shifting schedule not only impacts timing of the entire school day, but sends routines back to the drawing board.
We've been really trying to share that message that how problematic this is.
Parents also thrust into logistical gymnastics for the last few weeks.
It's definitely been chaotic and stressful.
This mom juggling 3 kids in 3 different schools.
She was marked absent one day because she was so late. They can't get her there at 8 a.m. How are they going to get her there at 7:50 in the morning? I worry that she'll just be even later to school.
Some skeptical if this is the right fix for the problem.
I'm concerned because I think the issue is bigger than just time.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Well, Howard County schools tell Fox 45 News the schedule changes will be for the rest of the school year. The school board just added a new meeting Monday night to talk about student transportation.
Now that mother in Ellicott City is setting up a town hall focused on the bus issues. It's scheduled for Tuesday, September 19th at 6 p.m. at the Howard County Library in Columbia. It's unknown if anyone from Howard County Public Schools will attend. If your family experiences any issues with school bus systems and service, we'd like to hear about it. Send any information and pictures or videos to us at news@foxbaltimore.com.
The Housing Authority of Baltimore responding to an IG report claiming they owe more than $7 million in overdue water bills. HABC says the Department of Public Works has sent them several inaccurate bills. The Housing Authority says they've tried working out the discrepancies with DPW, but the billing system is yet to reflect the correct amount of money. Earlier this week, Baltimore Inspector General Isabel Cumming told us DPW's collection process may not always be reliable.
Another thing that we determined was there's a lot of these things were being done manually, and that we had just one person in DPW that was putting together the manual report on certain amounts of billing.
The Inspector General also says the issue extends beyond the Housing Authority. The report outlines more than 180,000 accounts with past due bills.
Taking a look right now at the Fox box on the top left, a D.C. appeals court hears arguments in 3 cases challenging the Biden administration's efforts to curb vehicle emissions. The group of Republican states claim the policies breach the president's authority. The Biden administration says a ruling against them could jeopardize environmental protections.
Top right, a new USA Today poll shows 70% of Americans say the economy is getting worse. More people say they trust Trump rather than President Biden to improve the economy.
On the bottom left, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin says he's not sure about his political future. The Democrat says he has 3 options: run for election as an independent, run for president, or retire.
Bottom right, the U.S. hits Russia with another round of sanctions on more than 150 businesses and people helping the nation maintain its war in Ukraine. Russia expelled 2 U.S. diplomats today. The U.S. said it will respond to those actions, but wouldn't say how. Well, a woman simply waiting for a bus in Baltimore is robbed at gunpoint, but the crime doesn't stop there. The efforts to track down the suspect in tonight's Maryland's Most Wanted. And auto workers in Detroit could strike at midnight as contract negotiations continue. We'll have the latest on the stalemate.